Wande Owens and Jacob Bear are the Buffalo Bills 2025 undrafted free agents with the best chance to stick. I'm going to break that down for you and more today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Well, folks, welcome in. We are going to break down the Buffalo Bills undrafted free agent class. There's 12 of them, and I want to share some thoughts on each as I've done some research on these players. Want to tell you which ones I think have the best chance to stick. And ultimately, what I want to get to is in segment 3, breaking down where the Bills roster numbers stand. This roster, assuming all of these undrafted free agents pass their physicals and sign, the Bills will have 88 of 90 roster spots filled. And I want to examine where the numbers are light, where the numbers are thin, and really just get an idea for where this team's at entering rookie camp, entering the OTAs, and of course, ultimately training camp. I want to start with a quote. I want to start with a quote from Howie Roseman. I used this quote last year when discussing the Bills 2024 undrafted free agent class, and I think it's just something we should always keep in mind. Howie Roseman said this, that's the Eagles general manager. We've always felt that to play in the NFL, you have to have something unusual about you athletically and have traits and tools in your body to develop. Mentality comes with that. We're always looking for those guys, and that's where we've had our best success. Before every draft, we talk about some of the best 6th and 7th round picks that we've ever had, like Jason Kelce, who's a freak, and Jordan Mailata, who's also a freak. If you're going to hit on guys on day 3, they better be unusual. This is something I like to apply also to the undrafted free agents. If you're going to stick, you got to have something unusual about you. And so as I considered these 12 players that the Bills have agreed to terms with, I thought to myself, which ones have unusual traits? Something that's going to help them stick around. And whether that's size, athleticism, a production metric, that's what I was looking for when researching these players. No, I've not watched film on any of these guys. I'm not going to be able to give you film takes on any of them. But I have researched their size, their athleticism, their production to try to find the ones that stand out as potentially unusual. Now, the Bills don't really get the most attractive names when it comes to undrafted free agency. It's a tough roster to crack. Now, there's been some success stories for the Bills. Cam Lewis, Jamarcus Ingram, Joe Andreessen, Reggie Gilliam, Alec Anderson, Quentin Morris. A guy like Tyrell Shavers has been sticking around. Richard Garage is sticking around. So that's all good, but ultimately, I think it's generally understood that the Bills are a tough roster to make. The practice squad is another story, but undrafted free agents are going to try to sign with teams that they feel like they have the best opportunity to make. And so it's been a while since I've looked at a Bills undrafted free agent class and thought, wow, I can't believe some of these guys they got. Before I talk about the players the Bills did get, I want to add a comment about Sean Dolak. University of Buffalo. You certainly felt like there's a good chance that he could come to Buffalo as an undrafted free agent, especially given the numbers that the Bills have at linebacker. Talked about this yesterday. You've got the same exact 6 players you ended the season with. You've added nothing at linebacker with 2 expiring contracts. I thought maybe it'd be a pretty attractive destination for a guy like Sean Dolak, especially keeping in mind that, Sean Dolak is not a player that has ideal size, and there's not a lot of teams in the NFL that would, welcome a player like that. The Bills would be one of them. He's a little smaller than Terrell Bernard, but the Bills do have an appetite for smaller linebackers. Well, Sean Dolak signed with the Rams as an undrafted free agent. And I'll tell you what, if he wasn't going to sign in Buffalo, the Rams were the next best team to do that. They're another team that will play smaller linebackers, but the Rams have done a terrific job of developing like unknown players, undrafted free agents, late round picks. They're probably the best player development team in the league. And so from Sean Dolak's perspective, I'm sure he would have loved to come to Buffalo. But if not Buffalo, I think he picked, maybe even a better destination for him to have his best opportunity to stick around in the NFL. So we're all rooting for Sean Dolak, and I think he made a great choice going to the Rams, even though I would have loved for him to be in Buffalo. All right, so the Bills have agreed to terms with 12 undrafted free agents. 2 of them really stand out to me in a bigger way than any of the other 10, right? And I want to highlight those 2 here because they're the ones that I thought had something unusual about them, to bring this back to the Howie Roseman quote. And I told you in the cold open, Wande Owens and Jacob Bear are the 2 players. So let me tell you about them. Then we'll work through the other 10, and then we'll talk about the roster numbers and where things currently stand. Let's start with Wande Owens, a safety from New Hampshire, 5'11", 205 pounds. Relative athleticism score of a 9.59 out of 10. That's really good. Ran the 40 in 4.58 seconds. Spent his first 5 college seasons at Yale. Finished at New Hampshire. Very experienced player. Over 2,600 defensive snaps. Over 500 special team snaps. And I know that Pro Football Focus is not the end-all, be-all, and I don't usually like their grades. But his grades are really strong across the board, across every season, in every area of playing the game. Coverage, run defense, tackling. It's all really good. So you got a dynamic athlete with tons of experience, comes from Yale, 5 seasons at Yale. I think he'll be smart enough to figure out the playbook. Graded really well. All right, we got some potentially unusual things here. We like that. The other guy that I found some unusual traits was center Jacob Bear out of Arkansas State. 6'3", 306 pounds, 32.5-inch arms, relative athleticism score of a 7.03 out of 10. Ran the 40 in 5.2. Was an all-state power lifter in high school. First 2 seasons at Lamar, which is the FCS level, and his last 2 at Arkansas State. How about this? 46 college starts, pretty much started every single game in college. And that's keeping in mind that he had a surgery in April of 2024 to repair an ACL, and he played 5 months later. 5 months later, this guy was ready to go in a college football game. He missed the season opener in 2024, but started the rest of the season. So you got some unusual things. I mean, certainly the weightlifting background. I think he did 32 reps of 225. Experienced player, a decent athlete. But being able to come back from an ACL in 5 months is pretty crazy. So those are the 2 that I thought stood out above the rest. We'll talk about the rest here on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with me. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a live same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Plus, folks, they got Major League Baseball, all the sports, football, futures bets that you can check in on. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, let's talk about the rest of these undrafted free agents. I'll give you some just notes about each one of them. Linebacker Keontae Jenkins out of Virginia Tech, 6'2", 211, 30 3/4 on the arm length. RAS score of a 5.69 out of 10, ran the 40 in 4.57 seconds. He played that slot linebacker role for Virginia Tech. I think they call it the star role. You've seen a lot of other guys do this. Divine Diablo, Chamari Connor played this role for Virginia Tech. And they've had meaningful NFL careers, right, to this point. And he's very experienced, over 1,800 college snaps on defense, 300, almost 400 snaps of special teams. But kind of the wrong size, right? Too small to play linebacker at 211, not athletic enough to play safety. But that overhang type player, I mean, it's worked for other teams. I just feel like probably too limited of an overall physical profile here. Next up, wide receiver Kelly Akari out of Mississippi State, 6 foot, 201 pounds, RAS score of a 5.49, ran the 40 in 4.61 seconds. He did register a 40-inch vertical jump. 2 seasons at junior college, then 2 seasons at UTEP. His last year in the SEC at Mississippi State. Did have 1,000 yards for UTEP in 2023, but his 1 season at Mississippi State, he had 25 catches for 391 yards and 2 touchdowns. Next up, Stephen Gosnell, a wide receiver out of Virginia Tech, 6'2", 198 pounds, RAS score of a 6.82, ran the 40 in 4.56 seconds. 2 seasons at North Carolina, then 3 at Virginia Tech. He did average 16 yards per catch for his career, at a career high 505 yards in 2024 with an average of 18 yards per catch and an average depth of target of 14.2 yards, which is pretty strong. But obviously this guy profiles as a vertical receiver, but at 6'2", 198 with mid 4.5 speed, that's probably not going to stick. The Bills also added wide receiver Hale Presley from Baylor, 6'2", 201, RAS score of a 5.96, 4.56 in the 40, at a career high 433 receiving yards in 2024 at Baylor. Next up, tight end Kaliki Letu out of Washington, 6'7", 249, RAS score of a 5.26, ran the 40 in 4.89 seconds. 2 seasons at Cal, 2 at Nevada, then finished up in 2024 at Washington. He had his best season for Washington, 40 catches, 371 yards on 48 targets. So his overall actually reception percentage based on, targets and how many of those were receptions, pretty high, which is pretty cool. He's also the younger brother of Leatu Latu, who was a defensive end out of UCLA that was actually the Colts' first-round pick last year. Next up, guard Rush Reimer out of Cal, 6'5", 304 pounds, 33 1/8-inch arms, RAS score of a 4.29 out of 10, ran the 40 in 5.37 seconds. Spent 3 seasons at Montana State, started 30 games there, and finished up his career at Cal in 2024, where he logged 11 starts. Next up, defensive tackle Devin Brandt Epps out of New Mexico, 6'3", 310 pounds, 32 1/2-inch arms, RAS score of a 7.87, ran the 40 in 5.15 seconds. 3 seasons at Old Dominion, then finished up in 2024 at New Mexico. I was looking at the size and athleticism profile here, 6'3", 310, over 32-inch arms, 5'15" in the 40. Pretty good overall athletic profile, and I was hoping to see maybe he had some college production. Not really. 41 pressures and 3 sacks and over 600 college pass rush snaps. So was hoping for a little bit more production to go with a decent athletic profile relative to these other UDFAs. Next up, defensive end Hayden Harris out of Montana, 6'5", 257 pounds, 32 1/8-inch arms, RAS score of a 6.59, ran the 40 in 4.81 seconds. His first 4 seasons were at UCLA. He really didn't play much. Then the last 2 at Montana, where he was like an important part of their defense. 58 pressures and 13 sacks in 2 seasons at Montana. So pretty solid there. 769 pass rush snaps. So he leveled down and got some opportunity. But I will say that feels like UCLA the last few years whether it's like Carson Schlesinger coming out of nowhere at linebacker, or some guys that, kind of transferred away and became more meaningful players. I feel like maybe they had some goofy stuff going on there, but, didn't really do much when he had a chance to be on that UCLA roster. Next up is Paris Shand, a defensive end from LSU, 6'4", 268, 34-inch arms. RAS score of a 6.83, ran the 40 in 4.88 seconds. 3 seasons at Arizona, then 2 at LSU. 9 sacks for his college career. I think he was like a contributor in 5 seasons, never had more than 2.5 sacks in a season. Last but not least, Daryl Porter, a corner from Miami. He's 5'11", 184 pounds, 31-inch arms. RAS score of a 2.1 out of 10. Ran the 40 in 4.58 seconds. 2 seasons at West Virginia, then the last 3 at Miami. Jamil Adai, remember, he's the Bills' corners coach. Obviously, he coached Porter at Miami, so I'm sure that has something to do with his arrival in Buffalo. Experienced player, over 2,000 career defensive snaps, 340 special team snaps, and, of course, some familiarity with Coach Adai. So that's your crop of undrafted free agents. I think comfortably the 2 most interesting are Jacob Bear and Wande Owens. We'll see how it all shakes out. This infusion of 12 players, assuming they all pass their physical, which Brandon Beane said we won't confirm that until next week. I think Thursday was the day. That'll put the Bills roster at 88 players. And, of course, you can have up to 90 players on your roster. So with that in mind, coming up next, I want to look at how many players at each position the Bills currently have, and then I want to compare that to what their normal amount is for a 90-man roster, and that'll give us maybe an idea as to where those last 2 roster spots will be used. So we'll do that here in just a moment. Folks, be sure to stick with me. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch isn't just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. The insights are surprising. When I first started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. It's very convenient. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And it's easy to collaborate. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, so let's take a look at this roster in terms of the numbers. As I said, coming out of the last segment, 88 players. If all of these guys ultimately sign, you can have a max of 90 players. And, the Bills will have some tryout players in during rookie camp. And last year, that was Joe Andreessen, who got signed, made the team. So you have an opportunity for potentially a tryout player to make it. And you could sign a free agent, right? There's usually Brandon Beane will sign a couple of players, a couple of veterans after the draft, kind of in this window ahead of the OTA. So that's something I'm definitely mindful of as a possibility here. And certainly, just because they're on the roster right now doesn't mean that they couldn't get bounced. It's just where the numbers are right now. So at quarterback, the Bills currently have 4 quarterbacks on the roster. The last 2 years, they've had 3 on the 90. So they're actually a little heavy at quarterback, which is interesting and probably necessary. If you remember, like last year, the Bills had to bring in Ben DiNucci to get through that last preseason game, or even Anthony Brown. Like, you've seen this kind of stuff happen. So I think the Bills probably did a solid thing here by going ahead and having 4. And I think there is a legit backup quarterback competition between Mitch Trubisky and Mike White. At running back and fullback, the Bills currently have 6, and each of the last 2 years they've had 6. So there's a good chance that your group of running backs / fullbacks is solidified. which means you're going to see a lot of Frank Gore and a lot of Darrington Evans when it comes to preseason games. At tight end, the Bills currently have 5 of those, and that's exactly how many they've had each of the last 2 years. So I think your tight end group is probably set with, really, it's Jackson Hawes versus Zach Davidson for tight end 3. I think Jackson Hawes will win that. At wide receiver, the Bills currently have 12 of those. They've had 13 each of the last 2 years. So this could be a spot where you see an addition. Obviously, the reports that Elijah Moore, not reports, it was confirmed by Brandon Beane, that Elijah Moore met with the Bills, was in for a visit just a few days ago on Monday after the draft. I'd welcome that addition. Just turned 25, former high pick of the Jets, spent 2 years with the Jets, 2 with the Browns, spent a dumpster fire of quarterbacks. I really liked him coming out of Ole Miss. That'd be a nice addition. I hope it happens. Offensive line, the Bills currently have 16 offensive linemen. They've had 17 each of the last 2 years, so they're probably about where they want to be. Maybe an addition there, but I'm not convinced of that. At D tackle, the Bills currently have 8 of those. They had 8 last year. They had 9 in 2023. Maybe there's an addition coming. Probably not. I think they're at a reasonable spot with that, especially with all the young players that are going to have to play. You know, with Agunjobi going to be out 6 weeks, that's going to put TJ Sanders and Deion Walker and Dwayne Carter and Zion Logue in a position to play meaningful snaps early in the season. And I don't know how much you want to compound that by having players that really don't have a chance. If anything, bring back Elianku, and you might have your best run-stopping one technique if you do that. At defensive end, the Bills have 8, and that's a little light. Last year they had 10. In 2023, they had 9. So perhaps an addition coming at defensive end to bulk up those numbers just a bit. Linebacker continues to be thin. The Bills have 7 with the UDFA that I talked about. Last year they had 9. In 2023, they had 8. So I would expect the Bills are hopeful to either sign a tryout player to linebacker or even a veteran addition. I would understand a veteran addition as well, based on just how young the depth is behind Milano and Bernard. And last year they had Nick Moreau and they had Deion Jones in the mix during camp. And I could see the Bills wanting to get a little bit more experience in there for the depth and for the overall competition at linebacker. At corner, the Bills are really heavy here. They currently have 12. They've had 9 each of the last 2 years. Now, this does include Brandon Codrington, who's really, I don't think he could play corner. And Jordan Hancock, who I've done the film on him now. I'm well acquainted with Jordan Hancock. Played a lot of safety, and I think he probably profiles best as a safety that can play a slot corner in a pinch. So if you were to take those 2 names out, that puts it at 10, which is closer to where they've been the last couple of years at 9. But I am including Hancock and Codrington in the corner numbers, so it looks like the Bills are pretty robust when it comes to numbers at corner. Then lastly is safety, where the Bills currently have 6. Again, Hancock is counted as a corner. I am counting Cam Lewis as a safety. Last year they had 7. The year before that they had 8. So they're at 6. But again, if Hancock is more of a safety, we'll find out, then that would beef up that number and make it not look quite as heavy at corner. Hancock, the Bean said the plan is to play him during the spring at both nickel corner and safety, and then that'll give them the right idea for what they're going to have him major in during training camp. But it does sound like they want him to play both roles. I would say there's appealing things that he can do in the slot. Overall, like the run defense, the blitzing profile, zone coverage from the slot. I don't love him in man coverage from the slot, so there's that to be mindful of, where I think you still get a lot of the best qualities that he has playing from depth at safety with less man coverage responsibility. So I probably do like him better at safety. That can play corner or slot corner in a pinch. So that's kind of my early read on Jordan Hancock. I'll have that film breakdown in the Herd Mentality Substack very soon. If you're listening to this probably on Wednesday morning, I'll have that up for you as I continue to post film breakdowns of all of the Bills draft picks. And we'll keep working through the day 3 picks as this week moves along. All right, folks, thanks for being here. Plan for herd mentality tomorrow. And then Friday, I told you, it's me and Bruce Nolan telling you what we would have done with the Bills 2025 draft picks and compare that to what Brandon Beane did. We do that every single year. And this should be a fun one. Looking forward to recording that and publishing that for you on Friday. So as always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.